Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. I think we may begin with our InterQC topics for the month of September. Thank you so much for those who have been joining us constantly uh, at these spaces, and we will also like to welcome those who are just approaching these academic programs that we've been developing and organizing so that you may have resources available and professionals from an international perspective for knowledge. I'm very glad to be here with you. I would like to invite you to write on the chat from which countries are you joining, from which institutions, laboratories, and also considering that today's topic is related to point of care testing. We will also like to know if you have been using or applying this strategy in your clinical laboratories. I think it is a really important strategy nowadays in clinical laboratories. So we would love to know which countries are developing and using this methodology. Today, we're going to have a very special guest. Further on, I'm going to tell you who it is. And well, for those who are just joining us at this space, we would like to kindly welcome you and thank you for being here with us. There are some important messages. I would like to tell you that this InterQC Topics program is a program that is being part or licensed by the IFCC. We, as quality academics, are corporate members at IFCC. Thus, the certificates from these spaces have this license as well. There's something important that you may keep in mind when requesting your certificates. There are two fundamental requirements. One of those are to be with us at least for 80% of the session. Ideally, you may be from beginning to end, and also that you may enter all the information that we request at the beginning of the register. From Wednesday, you may enter our website for InterQC topics and download your certificate by completing these requirements. I will also like to invite you to be part of our fifth certificate in analytical quality control for clinical laboratories. It is useful to board such important topics such as the statistic tools, Six Sigma tools as well, so that we may combine with risk management, method validation, also accreditation. So I think this is a certificate that unites many characteristics that we may apply around quality management and the analytical quality in clinical laboratories. So you have that invitation to be part and register at this program. We are going to share the link through the chat so that you may be there and be informed of what it is. So today for InterQC topics, we have a very special topic. It is going to be um, approached by a special guest. He was not available to be here with us, but he sent exclusive material for quality academics. He is a Dr. Sergio Bernardina. He is a professor at the Department of Internal Medicine at the University of Roma Tor Vergata, and also the director of molecular biology at this college hospital, Tor Vergata. So it is such an honor to share these spaces with such professionals and that you may have access to this knowledge, these talks, this exclusive material, so that we may share knowledge and experience. So I would like to kindly welcome Dr. Sergio Bernardini and also invite you that if you have a concern or question, write through the chat. We're going to choose the questions and public the questions through our social media. So The talk is going to be in English, but we also have the interpretation in Spanish. We have all of this available so that we may learn about those strategies. So, Dr. Sergio, you may begin. Thank you so much.
Dear colleague, good morning. We are going to talk in this presentation about point of care testing, and in particular of the accreditation and quality of the point of care. First of all, just look at the definition of point of care testing in the standard ISO 22870 point of care testing requirements for quality and competence. The definition is testing that is performed near or at the site of a patient with the result leading to possible change in the care of the patients. But point of care testing is also defined as a quality assured pathology service using analytical devices provided near to the patients rather than in the traditional environment of a clinical laboratory. Very important, the definition of quality assured pathology service. There are many synonyms, as you can see, for point of care testing: bedside testing, near patient testing, ancillary testing, home testing, remote testing, and so on. The benefit of testing is point of care testing included usually a smaller specimen, rapid delivery of results, early diagnosis, and rapid turnaround time that altogether can lead to improve patients' outcome, reducing costs of the whole care process. And the core principle underlying point of care measurements has been described as reducing turnaround time without compromising the quality of the information on which clinical decisions for patients are based. So again, quality is highlighted in this definition of Collinson. Point of care can be influenced by errors. In particular, errors can be related to an operator incompetence, for instance, because of missing or ineffective training, or unsuitable activities concerning the pre, intra, and post-analytical phase because of no adherence to recognized procedures and standards, or failures in instruments, reagents, and software because of missing or ineffective control of procedures. And all of these errors can lead to potential degradation of quality results. Here you can see in this table phase or step in point of care process in the left column, divided in pre-analytical phase, analytical phase, and post-analytical phase, and the step-by-step defect that can intervene during the test. So we can have defect in test ordering, in patient specimen identification, in specimen collection, in specimen evaluation. And in the analytical phase, we can have a defect in method calibration, in specimen reagent interaction, in results generation and results validation. In the post-analytical phase, we can have defect in report formatting, in critical value reporting, in other results reporting, and report recording and retrieval. So all these steps should be closely monitored to avoid the step defects. But the 10 most frequently cited deficiencies in point of care testing are a failure to perform quality control testing, a failure to document quality control activities, a failure to follow manufacturer's instruction explicitly, a failure to document personal training and competency, a failure to document and take appropriate corrective action for control outliers, a failure to perform proficiency testing or external quality assessment schemes, very important, a failure to have a procedure manual for testing and result reporting, a failure to perform and document calibration verification in at least every 6 months, a failure to verify accuracy for analytes which are not included in a proficiency testing program, a failure to provide for continuing education for testing personnel. But there are obviously some differences between total testing process and point of care testing. You know the total testing process cycle, but which are the differences in point of care? In point of care testing, some of the steps are not of the total testing process are not present. For instance, package of sample for transport the sample for laboratory receives and logs specimens, and laboratory communicate results, but directly point of care devs perform the test. This is a matter of time, but also all these steps the errors that can be determined during these steps are not present in point of care, cannot be present in point of care tests. In theory, then, point of care tests eliminate some of the more problematic steps in the total testing process, including the specimen collection, the transport, the result of distribution. However, create other challenges from a risk management perspective, namely analyses performed by non-laboratory personnel. Achieving quality in point of care is incredibly important because medical decisions are often made immediately after the test is performed, eliminating any possibility to verify and correct results. And the quality and patient safety depend from the attention to the procedures and to the accreditation rules. Test results, in particular, should be comparable over time within the same laboratory and across different clinical laboratories. Laboratory measurement procedures and results should be equivalent within clinically meaningful limits only by adopting equivalent quality specification. Significant differences between laboratory results and point of care may confound interpretation of patients' status. The analytical quality specification of point of care should be the same of centralized laboratory testing. So a good correspondence should be present between the centralized laboratory testing results and the point of care test results. That should be compared between them continuously. So how to accreditate a point of care testing? You know, we have two important ISO regulation, ISO 15189 and ISO 22870. Both these regulations can be very important to accreditate point of care testing. And as you will see at the end of this presentation, possibly they will be merged in 2022. Just look at the accreditation of laboratory medicine and point of care, in particular the ISO 15189, which has been delivered in 2012, is related to medical laboratories requirement for quality and competence and continuous improvement and prevention. It's the same for ISO 22870, which was delivered in 2016, in which is related to point of care requirements for quality and competence in the same field than 15189. The accreditation in particular include the quality of the system, the staff competence, and there is an impossibility to dissociate the management, the organizational approach, and the clinical approach. In particular, just look at the introduction of the ISO 15189. This step tells that medical laboratory services are essential to patient care and therefore have to be available to meet the need of all patients and the clinical personnel responsible for the care of those patients. Such services include arrangement for examination requests, patient preparation, patient identification, collection of samples, transportation, storage, processing, and examination of clinical samples, together with subsequent interpretation, reporting, and advice, in addition to the consideration of safety and ethics in medical laboratory work. And then the scope of these internal standards are the confirming or recognizing the competence of medical laboratories by laboratory customers, regulating authorities, and accreditation bodies. So, as you can see here, the medical laboratory should develop quality management testing in assessing their own competence toward customers, regulatory authorities, and accreditation bodies. The ISO 22870 introduction talk about advances in technology which result in compact, easy to use in vitro diagnostic medical devices that make it possible to carry out some examination at or close to the location of the patient. Point of care near patient testing may benefit the patient as well as healthcare facilities. The risk to the patients and to the facilities can be managed by a well-designed, fully implemented quality management system that facilitates first, the evaluation of new or alternative point of care instrument and system, the evaluation and approval of end users' proposals and protocols, the purchase, installation, and maintenance of the equipment, the maintenance of consumable supplies and regions, the training, certification, and recertification of point of care system operators, and quality control and quality assurance. Bodies that recognize the competence of point of care facilities may use this document and as the basis for their activities. So these rules, this document is so important for the accreditation of point of care testing. Which is the scope? This document gives specific requirements applicable to point of care testing and is intended to be used in conjunction with ISO 15189, which is focused in particular in medical laboratories. The requirements of this document apply when point-of-care test is carried out in an hospital, clinic, and by healthcare organization providing ambulatory care. This document can be applied to transcutaneous measurements, the analysis of expired hair, volatolomics, and in vivo monitoring of physiological parameters. Patient self-testing in a home or community setting is excluded, but element of this document can be applicable. So it's not applicable to the direct consumer testing, which is completely different from the point-of-care test. And against like 15189, you can see that also in this case is important the quality management system, the assessing of competence toward customers, regulating authorities, and accreditation bodies. So the internal standards for laboratory medicine point of care have more the same targets, and they possibly will be merged together in the ISO 15189 that should be delivered at the end of 2022. In the ISO 22870, you can find some attention to the pre-examination procedures. For instance, in this point, the organization should ensure identification of the sample and its clerical traceability to the patients, identification and traceability. And the organization should exercise care with samples obtained for point-of-care tests from its patients while such samples are under the organization control or are being used by the organization. The organization shall identify and safeguard the sample for analysis. If any sample is lost, damaged, or otherwise found to be unsuitable for use, this should be reported to the responsible healthcare professional and records maintained. So traceability, records are so, and identification. And you can see here what tell the 15189. The laboratory should have document procedures and information for pre-examination activities to ensure the validity of the results of examination. Again, from the 15189, the instruction for the pre-collection activity that can be obviously applied also to point of care. Completion of requests from electronic request, preparation of the patients, instruction to caregivers, phlebotomists, sample collector and patients, type and amount of primary sample to be collected with description of the primary sample container and any necessary additives, special timing of collection where needed, clinical information relevant to or affecting sample collection, examination performance or result interpretation. So you can see that the ISO 15189 and the ISO 22817 have many concepts which merge between them also and which can be utilized together for point of care testing. Here you can see again the pre-examination procedure. Looking at the examination procedure, a procedure manuals for each point of care system should be made available to all users. This is fundamental. And the manufacturer recommendation regarding minimum quality control of a specific instrument system may be accepted following documented review. Instrument-generated quality control should be acceptable provided that regulatory authorities have accepted it. So a great focus in the examination procedures about the instrumentation quality check. And the same for the 15189. You can see here the laboratory should select examination procedures which have been validated for the intended use. The identity of person performing activity in examination process should be recorded. So not only the document should be updated continuously about the verification and validation of the instrument and the method, but the person performing the activity should be recorded and documented. The verification of the examination procedures for the 15189 are, again, the laboratory should obtain information from the manufacturer method developer for confirming the performance characteristic of the procedure. And the independent verification by the laboratory should confirm through obtaining objective evidence that the performance claim for the examination procedure have been met. The laboratory should document the procedure used for the verification, record the results obtained. Staff with the appropriate authority should review the verification results and record the review. Again, the validation, the 0.5513 in the ISO 15189 about the validation of examination procedures that can be applied to point of care 2, the laboratory should validate examination procedures derived from the following source: non-standard methods, laboratory design of development methods, standard methods used outside the intended scope, validated methods subsequently modified. And the validation should be as extensive as is necessary and confirmed through the provision of objective evidence that the specific requirement for the intended use of the examination has been fulfilled. And again, the document procedure used should be recorded. Another important point that can be shared between the 15189 and 22870 is the measurement uncertainty and measured quantity values. The laboratory should determine measurement uncertainty for each measurement procedure in the examination phase used to report measured quantity values on patient samples. The laboratory should define the performance requirement for the measurement uncertainty of each measurement procedure and regularly review estimated of measurement uncertainty. The biological reference interval or clinical decision values, again, should be applied also to point of care. The document of examination procedures. Examination procedures should be documented. They should be written in a language commonly understood by the staff in the laboratory and be available in appropriate location. The same for point of care. You can see here, procedure manuals for each point of care system should be made available to all users. So again, these two ISO rules share many points between them. This is why will be merged in the next future. So you can see here the different points for ISO 15189 and for ISO 22870. And you can see that there are the same point, the same paragraph of the same point of attention, and then very soon they will be merged and will be applied to the accreditation together to the accreditation of clinical laboratories, routine laboratories, as well as point-of-care testing approach. Who is responsible to assure the quality of examination procedures? Is the manager. The quality manager is responsible for the design, implementation, and operational quality control that ensures point of care conforms to the quality standard of the central laboratory. The same quality standards. The relationship between values obtained in the laboratory and point of care should be established and published or available upon request. The quality manager may assign responsibility for quality control on a specific point-of-care instrument system to an unqualified person. When such activities are assigned, the quality manager should remain accountable to the laboratory director. Where available, participation in external quality assessment should be required. In the absence of an external quality assurance scheme, the laboratory director should establish an internal quality assessment scheme involving the circulation of samples or replication of the test within the laboratory. The laboratory director and the multidisciplinary point-of-care management group should receive and review the external or internal quality assessment data. Suggested modification arising from such review should be incorporated in the point-of-care policy, processes, and procedures. So the laboratory director should validate the following process for service provision: trueness and precision, and where appropriate, linearity of the instrument response should be verified by the quality control program. Precision, appropriate, and linearity. Split patient sample or other acceptable quality control material should be used to verify performance of point-of-care system used in multiple sites. Very important, because you know that sometimes, very often, the point-of-care are part of networks of point-of-care sites. So this is very important to compare different point-of-care sites included in a networks. Frequency of internal quality control should be specified for each device. Correction action to be taken for out-of-control results should be documented. Action taken on non-conforming quality control results should be also documented. A quality control results should be recorded for regular review by the quality manager or designated person. So document for a regular review. So the culture of safety in point of care is growing. Thanks to the merging of ISO 15189 and ISO 22870, to which you should look if you are interested in the accreditation of your point of care service. And thanks to this, the main points in conclusion are monitoring patients' identification, specimen adequacy, and report accuracy, assuring evidence-based analytical performance characteristic, advancing operator competency, procedural consistency, quality control, and result integrity. And part of the cultural safety in point-of-care tests are, as I told you, internal quality control, external quality assessment, quality indicators that can be made inside the lab, and very important, the staff competence through adequate training and continuous development of the training. So what about culture of safety in point of care? The take-home message. Before point of care is implemented for clinical use, tests or devices require verification under the guidance of laboratory professional to ensure that the tests are fit for intended clinical use. So this is an important role of laboratory professionals. Data management is a key element to enable oversight of point-of-care test quality and refers to central connectivity of point-of-care instruments with data management software. Implementation of quality assurance frameworks and plan for laboratory oversight are very important to ensure the results remain as reliable and accurate as possible. So laboratory oversight play a key role in ensuring appropriate assurance practices and are in place for point of care. Staff training and competence are especially relevant in point of care because a large number of operators use analyzer in various clinical settings. Training planning must be rapid and flexible to ensure that only qualified personnel are using the analyzer. Training effectiveness and competency of personnel must be periodically checked, and again, laboratory has a key role in ensuring appropriate training and competence development of the non-laboratory personnel that will use point-of-care instruments. So, after looking at the quality and accreditation processes at the rule ISO 15189 and 22870, which, as I told you, are going to merge between them to be focused on both point-of-care testing and routine clinical laboratories. I just like to highlight you some few issues about point of care. In particular, the factors we are stimulating point of care demands to date. In particular, the healthcare reforms and patient-centered care. This is very important now, in particular after COVID disease. In many countries, there is the focus on patient-centered care in reforms of the health system to be more close to the patients. And obviously the technological advancements, because the point-of-care devices are improving in performance and quality. Laboratory staff shortages, this is very common, for instance, in Europe. Increasing older population and more chronic diseases, so start to be more and more important to be to follow the patients maybe at home or in the outpatient clinic. Rising incidence of lifestyle disease, in particular diabetes, and don't forget point of care for infectious disease. Just think to the role of point of care during COVID disease, increasing home-based point of care usage, increasing trend toward healthcare decentralization, long-term saving, rural location with limited lab service, rural location, but also crisis areas, prevalence of disease in developing countries. In developing countries, usually point of care can have a great relevance to test people. This is for HIV, for HBV, and so on. For the testing campaigns, which are the required feature of point-of-care devices. There is the so-called the acronym ASSURED. We mean affordable, sensitive, specific, user-friendly, rapid and robust, equipment-free, not complex, and delivered to end users. And there are some features of critical care analyzer that contribute to ease of use and reduce the risk of errors. Long life maintenance, free electrode or disposable sensor pack, touch screen as the user interface, software that can demand user and patient's identification, very important for traceability, built-in barcode scanners, sample aspiration instead of injection, reduces sample size, clot detection within analysis chamber, sample detection to prevent short samples, liquid calibration system instead of gas bottles, automated calibration, automated quality control sampling, sophisticated quality control program, including interpretation of the data, connectivity to information system allowing remote monitoring control, maybe from a central laboratory, built-in video for training purpose. So all these features can help in making easy to use and free of errors the point of care practice. But as I told you before, there are many challenges for point of care, which are from the management point of view, analytical point quality, we already told about this, training and competency of the staff, and also the cost of billing, because point of care and laboratory code have to be different to avoid confusion in cost and billing, and point of care sometimes utilize multi-test cartridge, and in this case, the reimbursement is sometimes not properly. How many the point of care settings are growing with the time? In the last decade, had an incredible growth. Today you can find point of care settings in helicopter or airline, in ambulance, in cruise ship, in military field hospital, in disaster relief, where the clinical routine laboratories are damaged, expedition, space shuttle too, and hospital worlds inside the hospital, in clinics, in school, in athletics, in events, in remote settings. Obviously, there are limitations, but obviously, as you can see here, many of these limitations can be overcome with the accreditation and following the rules of the ISO 15189, ISO 22870 documents. And obviously, point of care now is increasing also, looking at the field of applications. In particular, there is an enormous growth of genetic direct-to-consumer testing, but this is not point of care in the real meaning. And the direct-to-consumer test require different regulation, and today it is completely deregulated. So has some advantages, but many limitations and unintended consequences. So direct-to-consumer testing should be well distinguished from point-of-care tests that require specific regulations. The same when you find your point of care testing to the pharmacist, they should be included in the network of point of care tests, but should follow the regulation, obviously. Which is the future? Obviously, there is a tremendous advancement in technology. And so, in particular, in smartphone attachment, in particular in the application of mobile health, which is developing together with point of care, which interact continuously with point-of-care devices and methods. You can see possibly mobile service will become more and more involved also in the interpretation of the results through digital tools, artificial intelligence tools, which are present, software present in the mobile. And then you can consider application in any fields of the medicine, of the diagnostics, with so many different methods and sensors, which are in rapid growth. So point of care in some way is involved in digital health and wearable devices. Next generation of point-of-care devices will integrate with digital health, perform smart algorithm to enhance personal medicine, linking current test results to past trends and personal health data. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sergio, for your talk, for this wonderful topic that it is really important nowadays at clinical diagnostics. So there are important messages relevant for the management of those strategies. It is essential for we to keep working on POCT tests that is needed in broad territories that we have a difficult access to diagnostic, but also to be advancing with methodologies that are analytical and focused on the patient. So thank you so much, truly, for this talk and also the material that was shared with quality academics and also for InterQC topics. For those who were participating with the questions, we would like to tell you that we're going to choose them and share the answers through our social media so that you may keep sight of them. Don't forget that you may download the certificate at InterQC Topics website. It is important that you have to attend 80% of the session, and remember that they are going to be ready from Wednesday at our InterQC Topics webpage. Don't forget to follow our pages, Quality Academics. Remember the invitation that I made to you to our fifth certificate in quality, analytical quality control for clinical laboratories. So to keep this approach that the clinical laboratories professionals, we do things right. So that is related to the mission that we may generate a diagnostic and trusty results. Thank you so much. Regards. We may see each other at the next opportunity in InterQC Topics. Thank you so much and farewell.